And welcome back to the JKR Podcast. Today we have Indiana native, Indiana Mustangs first baseman and outfielder, 2025 Virginia Tech commit. We got Mason Braun on the podcast. Mason, super pumped to get you on the show, man. How are you doing today?
Good, good. How about you?
I'm doing good. All right, man. So kind of, before we dig into your baseball career a little bit, I do have one question I like to ask everybody that gets on the podcast, and that is, for those who don't know you, how would you introduce yourself? Who exactly is Mason Braun?
Um, I'm Mason Braun. So I'm a 2025 15-year-old Virginia Tech commit from South Bend, Indiana. I love going about my day playing baseball. I'm a very smart athlete too. I have all A's for my whole high school career, and I'm a very dream-oriented person.
Okay. Love to see it. I mean, I'm a very dream oriented person as well. So, it's kind of cool to dig into the minds of people who are dream oriented. But before we kind of dig into your baseball career, I know you said your schedule for this, like you have finals week this week, and your schedule is pretty much all, AP, college courses, honors courses, stuff like that. So when you do get to Virginia Tech, like, do you have some sort of plan on what you're wanting to major in, or have you not really thought about that yet?
So right now, I'm either looking into actuarial science, more like insurance actuary stuff, or more statistics like baseball analytics and all that type of statistic stuff.
Okay, so there's not very many, sophomores in high school who are interested in within insurance and that type of stuff. So I guess what is it that kind of interests you within that insurance industry?
Well, like the actuary stuff, like really interests me because like you look at people's lives and everything and see what they've done and how much their life is worth and like all that stuff. So it's like kind of cool to me that you have to dig into people's lives like that.
Okay, hell yeah. So I take it Virginia Tech has some sort of majors that help you within that part.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, so let's kind of dig into your travel ball career a little bit. Obviously, I know you play for the Indiana Mustangs. That's kind of how we got connected through, round tripper, Indiana Mustangs, stuff like that. So I guess just take us through how you got connected with, the Indiana Mustangs and, Coach Estep as well.
So it's a crazy story. So we were in Indy for a tournament at Grand Park, and my dad played for like Chris Estep and Coach Shirley when he was in high school. So he saw Coach Shirley at Indy, and he went up to him and had a conversation. And then they said they were starting a national team next year and would like me to come try out. So I tried out and I made the team. So we just built a relationship from there with Chris Estep and all that. So my dad's known him for 20 plus years, but like had distant contact with him for a while. So now it's like almost I'm playing for Chris Estep like my dad did. So it's a cool little experience.
So what travel ball team did you play with before you played for the Mustangs?
I played with Pirates Elite Black from South Bend,
Okay.
Indiana area.
So then I guess going through with them and then now playing for the Mustangs for what has it been, was last summer kind of your first summer with them, I take it?
Yeah, my
Okay,
last year was
so
my first summer with
okay,
Mustangs.
so now that last summer was your first summer with the Mustangs, I guess kind of compare your experience with them compared to that first team down there up there in South Bend and how they're kind of ran on a like day-to-day, game-to-game basis.
So mostly with like the Pirates, it was more you're just going out playing, having fun. There's not much thinking into it. You're just having fun with like kids that you know from the town. And well, with Mustangs, you're having fun while playing, but you're also thinking. You're like thinking of what's coming up, who you're facing, and like more analytic stuff and all that. And like about your swing, like I need to hit with my front hand, not my back elbow, and like all that stuff. So there's just a lot more in-depth training and all that that comes with it.
Yeah. So I guess talking about the training with the Mustangs, I know you guys are training, what was it, like 3 or 4 hours a day every Sunday?
Yeah, we
Around
go like an hour infield, hour to 2 hours of hitting every Sunday with them. And like so the infield training, they have infield infielder coaches. So we do like a lot of cone work for feet work and then like glove work, like short hops, picks and everything. And then for hitting, we do a lot of high velo off of machines with drive line smash balls just to get like the bat path going. And then you work heavy balls in front hand work and all that type of stuff.
Okay, so now that you've been training with the Mustangs now for, I take it, probably a little bit more than a year, I guess
Yeah.
what's some of the biggest things that you've learned from, Coach Estep, Coach Andrews, some of those other coaches they have at Round Tripper? Just what are some of the biggest things that you've learned just in this past year with the Mustangs?
I've learned how to be more like efficient with your body and stuff. Like how if your body's like out of order, then everything's out of order. So like you want to be front foot needs to be down before anything. So then front foot, then your back knee goes and your front hand goes. And like you want to use your front hand before anything is what I learned, and how to use the ground.
Okay. And then I guess when you were playing for the Mustangs, what were some of those tournaments you guys were at this past summer? And I guess potentially even some of the favorite memories you've had playing travel ball in general, or even just playing travel ball for the Mustangs this past summer?
So like the tournaments we had that I was the most memory was Lake Point. We were in a first round of like game at the PBR National Championships, and it was like a night game against a team that was really good. And we had like our starting pitcher had a little meltdown at the beginning, and he like brought it back together, and we ended up winning 6-5 in the bottom of the 10th on like a ground ball out. And it was like a super surreal moment just because like we were down 6-1 going into the ninth and came back from that. And it was just a super fun time playing under the lights and all that.
I'm sure. So I guess this is a question I like to ask the majority of, ball players I get on. But with all the different facilities that you've been at, so far these past couple of years in travel ball, what would you say would be your favorite facility?
I loved Lake Point, just how like everything around there is super nice. All the fields are top notch, and like the atmosphere around it is like everybody like is good. It's just a cool atmosphere to be in.
Mm-hmm. So when you're playing for the Mustangs this past summer, was Coach Estep the head coach, or was he more of, I guess, the director of the Mustangs?
Coach Estep was our head coach for our national team. He like came to every tournament. He was our head coach, and then Coach Shirley was our assistant coach.
Okay, so you kind of dug into it there at the beginning, but what is your relationship like with Coach Estep, Coach Shirley, Coach Andrews as well? I mean, Coach Andrews is my contact with the Mustangs, so that's kind of who I know the most. But just take us through what your relationships are with those guys.
So with Coach Estep, he's like almost a second dad to me. He's like super close. We mess around. His son and me are like brothers. We're just like super close. And then like Coach Shirley, he's like the funny guy of the group. He's like always makes you laugh. He's like super energetic and like just fun to be around. And then Coach Andrews, I don't know him much, but every time I like talk to him and everything, he's like super down to earth, cool, knows a lot about baseball and just super down to earth.
Mm-hmm. That's what I thought. So like I said, I went to the facility there for Battle of Indiana just to check it out and kind of get some ideas rolling. And I show up, it's Estep. Kevin he's the scout from the Giants, right?
Yep.
Kevin and then Andrew, all three of them were in a room, and they're just sitting down having a nice conversation. I was like, man, I've never met these dudes before, but I'm talking to them like I know them pretty well. So all three of those guys are pretty cool. But as you kind of head into, your second to last travel ball season, you've got, after your junior year, after this summer, and then the 2024 summer as well. What are you looking forward to most, and kind of what's your plan going forward, just these next couple travel ball seasons?
So I'm really looking forward to playing against the top competition. So this year I'm playing with Indiana Mustangs, and then I'm also been contacted by Canes National, South Charlotte Panthers, and Artillery to play for them also. So right now, me and my family are deciding who we're going to choose for that. But I'm just excited to play against the top competition and make myself even bigger, because people know myself, but I want to make sure everybody in the country knows my name by the end of these seasons. And I'm just looking forward to having the opportunity to do that.
Of course. So how'd you kind of get in contact with the South Charlotte Panthers, the Canes, and Artillery? How'd you get in contact with some of those teams?
So the way I got in contact was through Coach Elvin of Virginia Tech. He was watching our games, and the South Charlotte coach and the Canes national coach watched some of our games with him, and he was talking about me to them. So then after Canes Nationals, Noah Franco moved up to 17U, they contacted me to fill his spot. And then South Charlotte Panthers first baseman left to go to 5-star National to be more of a PO type of pitcher. So Caden Hart, which is a Virginia Tech commit who plays on South Charlotte Panthers, contacted his coach and got me in contact with them. And then Artillery contacted me earlier in August time to see if I wanted to play in Florida, but I was already like committed to Mustangs for that tournament. So that we just continued talking since then from that time.
So as you go through this process of, choosing that second team you'll be playing with in the summer, what are some of those key things that you'll be looking at and kind of deciding between those organizations?
So really right now I'm deciding a lot about coaching, like the coaches and the development that I can get to like because like I'm really focused on developing myself this year because there's some draft stuff that's going on and all that, but it's more you coaches and everything that will develop you and get you like known. So I want to just get like the coaches that develop me the best.
Yeah. So as you talk about development, I guess what are some of your goals heading into, 2023 as we flip this calendar from December to January. I'm just heading into, the spring season and the travel ball season. What are some of the goals you have heading into 2023?
So my main goals is I want to be all state for high school. I want to make all state for our 3A. And I also want to be like just get up more on a draft radar and get my name out there a lot more via like all types of things through social media and through like scouting and all that type of stuff.
Yeah. So being all state as a sophomore, I mean, that's a pretty big goal right there. So I
Yeah.
just take us through what last season was like, as a freshman playing up there in Northern Indiana, where there's some good baseball talent, tons of players, heading Power Fives. So just take us through what your freshman season was like and kind of what I guess the outlook is on this upcoming sophomore season this spring.
So my freshman year, it was like it started off somewhat decent with we had 5 or 6 games canceled at the beginning of the year due to like weather and everything. And then it took me a couple games just to get used to like high school baseball since like sometimes you face pitchers that are throwing 70 and then you go another game, you face pitchers throwing 85, 90. So it's just a different game compared to summer ball where everybody's throwing about the same speed. You might face 1 or 2 pitchers that are throwing a lot harder, but it's more of a consistent average unlike high school.
So as you head into your sophomore year, what's the outlook at your guys' team there at New Prairie? Are you guys planning on competing there at that 3A level for sectional regional championships? And then what's the outlook for you just in terms of what the play style is going to be like as a sophomore?
So for New Prairie, we should be pretty good this year. We lost only 1 or 2 seniors, and our whole team will be juniors, sophomores, and most likely 1 freshman on our team too. So we should be competing for a sectional this year. We got moved sectional, so our sectional is a lot. We were out of St. Joe, which we lost 3 years in a row to in sectional finals. So we're having that in our regionals. It's going to be tough because we probably most likely will play Andrean in regionals. So that's always will be a tough game no matter what.
Yeah. Do you guys
And
play
then
a drain in the regular season?
no, we play Valpo in like South Central, Bradley Farrell, and all them. And
Okay. So what is that? So obviously you mentioned Bradley Farrell, Andrean, where Drake Bowen, Mason Braun are at. There's a couple other Division I commits that are up there, up northwest here in Indiana. But what would you say that Indiana competition level is like when it comes to high school baseball?
it's good. Like there's some schools like we play in the NIC, so you have some tiny schools that are like not good, but most of the time you're facing kids that are throwing 80, 85 with teams that have a bunch of good players on him. It's a lot better than most states will probably have where talent's super watered down. But like Indiana, it's on the come up for baseball. Definitely the northern part of Indiana too.
Yeah. So as a freshman last year, when you're I assume you were probably 14 last spring.
Yep.
When you're a 14-year-old, facing 17, 18-year-olds who are, have beards, going to school, going to college to either play baseball or not play baseball. What would you say would be tougher when you're facing those older guys at the high school level or when you're facing that top tier talent of your own age group? What would you say would be tougher? And then like, what's your approach difference when it comes to that?
So for last year, I felt like high school was just a little tougher just because it was a whole different ball game of like playing where you have more on the line almost in that stuff and you're playing kids that are a lot older. So it's just a lot harder and I think to like get used to it. But once I got used to it, I felt it was a lot easier than summer ball because once you get in a groove, you're staying in that groove because how much you're playing and all that.
Okay. So where does this come in at the timeline of your commitment? Did you commit before your freshman season or was it after?
So my freshman season, I had played my full freshman season, and then I committed after my third summer ball tournament after we played at the PBR National Championship in Lake Point.
Okay. So let's kind of dig into that recruiting process a little bit, kind of how it got started for you, what the reasoning was for Virginia Tech. Just kind of take us through when did that recruiting process kind of get started for you? Like when was it that Division I team started reaching out?
So the process started early March, where I just started sending emails to a bunch of schools just to get my name out there. And Chris Estep started calling schools for me and all that. And I got an email back from Virginia Tech and a couple other schools, but Virginia Tech, Coach Elvin called Chris and tried seeing if they had a time for where because they were coming to Notre Dame a couple weeks later to play Notre Dame. So when they came into town for Notre Dame, they saw me at the scrimmage. Virginia Tech saw me at a scrimmage, and I played like really well there. So we just continued staying in contact ever since then. And I went out to a visit in May of that time, like that year, to watch them play Louisville, and like went on a tour and all that. And I had contact with like West Virginia and a couple other schools, but I just built a relationship with Coach Elvin over 2 to 3 months, like super well. And then I met Coach Chef in May, and he was super nice of a dude. And I met all the other coaches, and they were super cool guys. So by the time June came, I really had my heart set on Virginia Tech. Most like that's what I wanted to do.
Okay. So as you were talking to the Virginia Tech coaching staff, you said you talked to West Virginia and a couple other schools as well. What were some of those key things that you were looking for, within a coaching staff, within a university, whatever it happened to be? What were some of those key things you were looking for?
So my key things were looking for how the coaches treated everybody and like if they cared about the kids or just cared about winning and all that. That was my main thing. But then I also focused on how they develop players, not just they try getting the best players in the country just to go win a national title. I wanted to know how they develop players from freshmen all the way up to juniors, seniors for the draft, and how they made teams fit together to win.
So when it did come time to June, you said you kind of, had pinboarded Virginia Tech as, the school that you wanted to go to. Do you remember that day where it kind of hit your mind that, okay, I'm committing to Virginia Tech here?
Yeah, it was a couple days after I talked to Coach Chef and Coach Elvin like a couple times in a day, and I just felt like they wanted me and like felt like I was wanted there, and it felt like home.
Okay, so digging through some of the initial conversations you had with that Virginia Tech coaching staff, the West Virginia coaching staff, and maybe some of those other schools as well. Did the majority of the coaching staffs have the same, I guess, what's the word? Just the same style of like initial phone conversation, or did they vary a little bit?
They mostly had the same, where it's just to get to know each other on like more of a personal level, family and all that, not anything baseball wise, just get to know each other personally. And so you can build a relationship personally instead of through baseball and all that type of stuff.
Okay. So was there a school that finished, like second or third in that recruiting process? Because I know you said in June you were kind of, had pinboarded Virginia Tech, but did you have in the back of your mind a potential another school that you were looking at pretty heavily?
There's a couple schools that Chris Estep like contacted that I was interested in, like Clemson and Mississippi State and like those type of schools. But once like this summer came and I've kept talking to Virginia Tech, I just like felt like that was the number one, and there wasn't like any other school I'd like.
Yeah. So you said in May that you got the chance to actually go to Virginia Tech and visit. You said they were playing. Who were they playing when you visited?
Louisville. So it was like
so
top 10 series in the country.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess just take us through what that visit was like in terms of like what they were showing you, what the atmosphere was there on campus, and what that game was like, when they're facing Louisville, a team that's, consistently producing like top five overall picks. Just kind of take us through that visit a little bit.
So I got there on Friday night and went to the game Friday night and like just met the coaches after the game, talked to them a little. But on Saturday morning, I went on they show me their indoor facility and show me a little tour around the facilities. And then I went to the game Saturday, and that was the most craziest game I've been to for like college. It was like raining, so they went into a delay, and then they came out of the delay, and like it was like I think 2 or 3 back-to-back home runs that there were, or something crazy like that. So it was just super cool. And like it was a sold out crowd almost, and it was just a crazy atmosphere.
Yeah. So now being committed to Virginia Tech for, I mean, what is that, 7-8 months now, or I get whatever it is. Do you have any relationships with other guys who are committed to Virginia Tech, maybe within your age group, or even guys who are a part of like the 24, 23 class?
So I've built a big relationship with Caden Hart from, I think, North Carolina. Yeah. And me and him talk on the daily. He's like almost a brother to me now. He's like super close outfielder, plays for South Charlotte. So like that's how I got in contact with South Charlotte was through him. But we built like almost a brotherhood together.
Okay. So with you, still being a sophomore and there's still got 3 years before you play college ball, are you, throwing in Virginia Tech to people who are uncommitted, be like, oh, you guys,
Oh
you
yeah.
guys need to go check out Virginia Tech.
Yeah. I have a buddy that I met down at the All American Showcase for a perfect game that I got him to go to the camp. He's going to the camp with me in January. He's a pitcher up to like 93. So I got him to be interested just by talking to him about it.
Yeah. So you said you were a part of that All-American Perfect Game Showcase, correct?
Yeah.
So just take us through what that experience was like when it came to, what the day-to-day looked like and overall what that experience was like.
So it was at LSU, which is an amazing field and all that. But first night it rained, so we were only able to take BP on the field. It was like super cool. Kids were all tons of talent at that event. You had kids like Gabe Boyd, Mississippi commit, Hagen Wright, Arizona State commit, some top of the name guys. And when I went there, I wasn't as much known. I was known as the Virginia Tech commit, not like Mason Braun name all out there. But then it rained out, so we took live ABs inside the cages. And I don't think I ever got out in those live ABs. I think I went 4 for 4 with a home run in the live ABs. So that's where I really got my name out there, and kids started being like, "Oh shit, this guy's good."
Okay, there we go. I mean, now you're the number 2 prospect in Indiana for, perfect game, number 5 there for PBR. I know we talked about that a little bit, a month ago or so, but like, what does it come to your mind when you see yourself, listed, amongst some of the top in the state here in Indiana? Like, what goes through your mind? Do you take a lot of, I guess, let me re-ask that real quick. So we talked about, shoot, I'm trying to think about how to word it because I kind of want to post this. This is a question I want to post on the Instagram, so I want to make sure it's worded good. So obviously you did show out there at LSU. I mean, it came true. When PBR ranked you at number 5, Perfect Game ranked you at number 2. Do you kind of put like an emphasis on those numbers at all? With you being ranked a top of the state here in Indiana, or do you kind of just ignore those numbers?
I don't look at them as too much. It's like a cool thing to have, but I want to be that number 1 spot. I want to be known as the top player in the state. So like number 2 and number 5, to be honest, to me, that's not good enough. I still like working hard to try being that number 1 spot.
Yeah. So you said you're heading to Virginia Tech this January for that camp just to kind of show up there and kind of being with that coaching staff and be on campus. Are you planning on going to MLK as well? Or for the most part, is that Virginia Tech camp kind of the only thing you're doing in January?
In January, it's going to be that Virginia Tech camp, and then the Battle of Indiana at Round Tripper is what my plans
There we
are.
go. There we go. Battle
Yes.
of Indiana, baby. So I guess just dig into Battle of Indiana a little bit. Like, what are you looking forward to most? Being a part of it and facing some of the top prospects in the state amongst yourself. What are you looking forward to most?
I'm looking forward to meeting like the top guys, getting to build relationships with them, but also just competing. You're facing the top guys in your state, so it's just going to be fun competing and proving that you're good enough to be with those guys.
Yeah. So if let's say I know I asked you this, a couple of weeks ago, but if you had to face one pitcher, who would that guy be?
I'd either say Cameron Tilley or Brayton Thomas. I'll go.
Okay. So let's say you had to face. Have you watched any of these guys pitch before, Braden Thomas or Cameron?
No, I haven't watched any of them.
Okay. I guess so. I believe they're both. Well, I know Braden's a lefty for sure. I don't know about Cameron.
He's a righty.
He's a righty. Okay.
Yep.
So I guess just take us through, let's say you're facing Cameron. I know you haven't watched him before, and then you're facing Braden as well. Kind of what's the approach there as you walk up to the batter's box?
So I know they both are hard throwers. So I'm going to spread out my stance and make sure my foot down's on time first. And then depending on like what pitches they throw, I'm going to eliminate one of those pitches. So I know Tilly throws like a splitter and stuff like that. So I'm going to eliminate that pitch since most of the time splitters are hard to locate for strikes. So I'm going to eliminate that pitch and attack the heater. So when I get one, I'm going to want my foot down and try hitting it.
Okay. All right. So I know this is one last question about Virginia Tech. So obviously you had a great relationship with that Virginia Tech coaching staff. I mean, you mentioned that was the reason you went there or committed there. So how has that relationship evolved since the time that you committed here this past June to where we're at now?
It's evolved a greatly ton. Like he's been super into like my summer ball coaching and like all that. A lot of development Coach Alvin has been with, like showing me arm program type of stuff, their hitting programs and how they like look at pitchers and do analytics stuff like that. So it's been more of like that, but then just getting to know each other's families and like on that type of level, like super closely knit.
Okay. So I know you are listed as a first baseman and an outfielder there on Perfect Game. So what is the plan here as you move forward into the future, head to Virginia Tech, go play pro ball? Like where do you see yourself in your mind kind of sticking at as a primary position? Where do you kind of see that going these next couple of years?
So at Virginia Tech, the plan was I'm gonna be playing both outfield and first base. It's just gonna be I'm gonna be more of if they need an outfielder, I'll play outfield. If they need a first baseman, I'll play first base. But I'm a good fielder enough, so I'm not a liability anywhere. So I can play the positions that they need to play. And for pro type of stuff, it's wherever they want me to play, I'll play.
Yeah. Where do you prefer?
I prefer first base just because I feel like you get more action than the outfield most of the time.
Okay. So when did you make that switch from being a two-way player? Because I know you were listed as a pitcher as well. So like when did you make that transition from being, a two-way player to now where you're a position player hitter?
So back in August of last year, I had surgery on my UCL, and that led to me just wanting to stick to more hitting and all that type of stuff and less pitching just because the stress that it puts on your elbow. And I just didn't feel comfortable with that due to the recovery again. So I just put my focus on outfield, first base, and hitting.
Okay. So take us through that surgery, the recovery process of it. Because obviously, I'm sure even though you weren't pitching anymore, you still had to recover that arm and rehab that arm to where it's 100%. So take us through that recovery process.
Yeah. So end of August, I had surgery and I was in a sling for about 3 to 4 weeks until I could start doing any type of physical therapy. And then they put me in like a movable brace. So I went through physical therapy with SBO, South Bend Orthopedics up in South Bend, which they work with Notre Dame. So they're like top notch doctors. So I had physical therapy for about 3 months of that. And with doing exercises at home, strengthening the muscles around the elbow and all that. And then after I was cleared from physical therapy, I had to go through like throwing reconstruction and learning how to throw again and like that type of movement. So that was another like 2 months. So I was fully cleared by March 2nd, which was actually my birthday, which I was cleared to fully throw 100% again and all that.
Okay, so now going through that process, I mean, you said that was August all the way to March. So, I mean, that's a long, long process. Did you hit a couple, like mental roadblocks along that way in terms of, not being able to go out there and play, be at 100% at certain times? Did you have a couple mental roadblocks? And if so, like, how did you kind of, steer around those and kind of keep moving forward?
Yeah, I had a couple roadblocks because definitely when I started throwing, I felt like pain and everything. So I felt that mental roadblock was I thought it tore again. So I like had mental breakdown thinking, oh my God, I have to do this again and all that. And I couldn't do this again. But when you're starting throwing, the ligament needs to get used to that. And that's what I learned over time is the ligament needs to get used to like the throwing. So if you feel pain, it's not actually that it's torn. It's like that it's just healing better. So that's what my main roadblock was, just thinking it got injured again.
Yeah. So take us through that day when you're back to 100% and you can just wing that thing and now you're going 100%. What was that day like?
That day was nice, except I still wasn't comfortable, so I just like threw like I've been throwing, but first time ever that I really went 100% and was super nice was I think our third game in high school ever. It was like a Saturday. I pitched for the first time after doing it, and that felt like really good. Just pitched 1 inning, but it just felt like a super like relieved just knowing that I can be back to 100% and not have to worry about anything.
Yeah. So I know the plan for you is to be a position player at Virginia Tech, but you did say you pitched last year. So is the plan to, keep pitching in high school, or like are you planning on just scratching that altogether and just focusing on hitting?
So my plan for high school is just to pitch if needed. If like they need an arm, I'll go up and throw, but it's not going to be like I'll pitch every week type of thing, multiple innings. It's just going to be like if you need to warm up a pitcher, I'll go out there and throw an inning or two if needed.
Yeah, so you're not like throwing bullpens on a weekly basis or anything.
No, not type of that stuff.
Okay. All right. So let's dig into your hitting approach a little bit. I know you dug into that a little bit, the case that you get to face Braden Thomas or Cameron Tilley. But just overall, just take us through your hitting approach when it comes to, you're on the on deck circle, you're watching the guy in front of you, watching the pitcher, kind of what's going through your mind. And then as you walk up to the batter's box, like, what is that hitting approach as you're facing each pitcher?
Okay, cool. So when I'm on deck, I'm watching to see what pitches the pitcher's throwing and what they're throwing for strikes. Because that's when I know if the pitcher's only throwing a fastball for a strike, I can just sit fastball because he's not going to throw other pitches for strikes. But if he's throwing multiple pitches for strikes, like 3 pitches for strikes, then I know that it's going to be a lot challenging AB. So I need to eliminate one of those pitches that are either his worst pitch or it's a pitch that I know I can't hit the best. So that's what my main like mentality is in the batter's box. But then when I'm walking up to the plate, everything goes out the window and I'm starting to get in that hitter's mode of attack early on because I like attacking early on first pitch if I see it. But then I also look at the situation and look at Estep because sometimes he wants me to either try pulling a ball if it's second and third to try getting the runner in or just play my game and hit up the middle because that's my main thinking in the batter's box is think up the middle, try driving the ball back at the pitcher.
Yeah. So do you have a different approach when you're playing for the Mustangs or just travel ball in general compared to when you're playing high school competition?
Not really. I usually have the same approach for high school and travel. It's more get the job done. If a run needs to be in, I'll hit that run in. Or if I'm just swinging, I'm swinging to hit the ball right back up the middle, and good things will happen if you do that.
Okay. So are you a big two-strike approach guy, or for the most part, do you kind of keep that same approach throughout that bat, no matter what the count is?
I'm big into two-strike approach more. I don't like striking out or anything. So I shorten up my swing a little bit, widen out, choke up a little, but I more focus on getting my foot down even earlier to like realizing what pitch is coming and get a bat on the ball.
Okay. All right, man. So there's a couple minutes left here in this Zoom meeting. So I'm gonna go ahead and end it. And then we can both just click on that second link and we can keep
All right, cool. Yep.
So if you were a scout watching your game, this could be, you're playing first base, playing the outfield, interacting with some of your teammates, in there in the dugout. What would be your personal scouting report on yourself? All your strengths, all your weaknesses. What would that scouting report look like?
My biggest strength would be I'm very energetic. I like to pick up my teammates, not get down on them, not get down on myself. I like picking up everybody. And then one of my biggest weaknesses is probably just that off speed, getting too heavy on the front foot. Sometimes I get too heavy on the front foot, leaning over, and it's harder to hit the off speed. So my biggest focus is staying back on pitches and not getting too heavy on that front foot. And when I don't get too heavy on the front foot, I'll smoke a ball.
Yeah. So you mentioned some of your weaknesses are, hitting that off speed. What are some of those things that you're wanting to work on most before you head to Virginia Tech's campus?
Mostly is I'm just trying to focus on being softer on the foot because if I'm soft on that front foot landing, I'll hit any off speed. It doesn't matter how good it is. But it's if I get too energetic and everything and try hitting the ball super hard is when I start getting super heavy on the front foot. And then I just need to tone myself down and be like, you don't need to hit the ball too hard because when I don't try hitting balls super hard, I'll hit it hard anyways.
Yeah,
so I've
seen those videos on Twitter. I mean, you're smacking balls, and I think was it Shooter Hunt that came out with that report saying you're one of like the strongest hitters in the Midwest, or it was something. I don't know if it was Shooter or not, but I mean, it was a pretty good report on you. And I mean, like I said, watching all those Twitter videos, man, like got me excited to go watch you play this spring. But kind of just dig through the mechanics of your swing a little bit. I guess where you learned it and just what those mechanics are a little bit from the load up all the way to the follow through.
So I've worked a lot with hitting with my dad. He played like at college at University of Southern Indiana for 4 years and then played a little semi-pro ball as a catcher. So me and him have worked a lot with hitting, but my main hitting is I want to get my hands through to the ball first, my front hand strong through the ball and get a foot down and knees and works. I'm not used to like wanting to uppercut the ball more as be straight and direct down to the ball to work on line drives and hitting like hard line drives.
Okay. All right, man. Well, I've got a couple of questions left for you. So I like to end off each podcast digging into the rapid fire, which is just five or six questions that I just kind of wrap off there. And you guys, we just dig into, like the personal side of things beyond baseball. So when it comes to, I guess, your baseball career, and just, learning under Coach Estep, learning under Coach Shirley, your high school coach, your dad who played collegiate baseball, who have been the two or three most influential people within your baseball career so far? And like, what would be the reasonings for them being so influential?
So the biggest influentials is my dad and Coach Estep. My dad has taught me like from a very young age that you want to play every game as hard as you can, give 110% every time you're on the field and not swing less than 110% and all that, because nothing good will happen if you're swinging 75% during a net that. And then Coach Estep has taught me just how to be calm throughout the game and play the game competitive, but also keep a like steady mind and not overthink things and just play simple.
Okay. All right. So when it comes to off the field, what are some of your passions that you have, beyond the game of baseball? You're up there in that South Bend area, you just messing around with some of your buddies. What are some of those other things you really enjoy doing beyond baseball?
One of the biggest things I've started to like doing is I used to play hockey. So I have a couple buddies that play hockey still. So me and my friend that I play baseball with, we go to a lot of hockey games together at the Ice Box in South Bend, and just like watching my old teammates play and getting to see them again at school.
Okay, so what got you into hockey, man? I mean, that's not a super popular sport here in Indiana, especially, I mean, where I'm from, it's not very popular. So I guess where did you get into the sport of hockey?
So I think it was going into fifth grade. My two best friends played hockey all throughout their life. So I was like, and they were a year older than me too. So I always looked at them and always wanted to play hockey. So I was like surprised for my birthday and started playing hockey all the way up until high school.
You hear me?
No, you lagged out.
You hear me now?
No, I can't hear you. I can hear you now.
Okay, cool. Yeah, you were lagging out too. I wasn't sure what the hell was going on, but no. So moving on to that next question. So when you're digging through your phone, who is the coolest contact that you have in your phone right now? Just in terms of, I guess, maybe someone a contact most people don't have, or whatever it is. Who is that coolest contact in your phone?
Definitely Max Clark on Snapchat.
Okay, there we go.
Knowing him and having conversations with him and all that. Most kids look up to him, and it's just a cool little thing to have.
Yeah,
I was actually doing all that.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about that today because, I mean, I know Max Clark is probably one of the most followed baseball players that we've had for sure. Yeah. And it's cool that he's in Indiana, and just building. Obviously, he's going to be there at Battle of Indiana too. So it's cool that he's in the state of Indiana, kind of, just building his career as a Hoosier. So that's cool. And it's cool that he puts himself out there towards, everybody. Like, it was easy for me to reach out to him to get him on the podcast. It's easy for different brands to reach out to him. He's a good thing for baseball, good thing for Indiana baseball, especially.
Yeah.
But no, so when it comes to motivations, what is it that kind of just gets you out of bed every day to, just help you get better or just get 1% better every day? What is it that kind of just wakes you up and wants you to motivates you?
So my biggest motivation is I want to do stuff for my family and for my parents. They've put so much money and time into baseball for me, and everything that I've wanted to do is that I want to pay them back in the future. I want to make it to pro ball as far as I can and be able to pay it back and reward them with something for what they've done for me for their whole life parenting.
Okay. So even taking that question just a little bit further, what does the perfect picture of your life look like here in 20 years from now? So you'd be, mid-30s. What does that perfect picture of your life look like if everything's going right?
The perfect picture, if everything's going right, is playing MLB, playing some pro ball in the MLB, having a good group of friends around me, good group of teammates, a wife, and having parents that I've retired where they're happy, they're coming to my games, and they don't have to work anymore because I've done stuff for them since they've done stuff to me.
Okay. All right, man. So now to that final question here on the podcast. So obviously when you get to Virginia Tech, you're going to have that opportunity to make money or capitalize off your name, image, and likeness and work with different brands. So when that time does come, what would be one dream brand that you would love to endorse, collaborate with, whatever it happens to be? What would that dream brand be?
The dream brand would be for me is Under Armour. Ever since I was a kid, I've loved Under Armour. Every type of thing Under Armour I've loved, and that'd just be a dream come true to work with a brand that big and Under Armour, where I've been wearing since I've been like 3 years old.
Yeah. Under Armour, the Under Armour's, Nikes, Adidas's, Rawlings, Louisville Slugger. Those are probably the most popular ones I get.
Yeah,
Lululemon's another popular one I
yeah,
get.
that is.
I never realized Lululemon was like a guy brand until, just this summer when everyone kept naming off Lululemon for that
Yeah,
question. But no, man, that's all the questions I got. Really appreciate you coming on the show. Obviously, I mean, we're going to stay connected here for, Battle of Indiana and just other things throughout your
yeah.
career. But no, just really appreciate you coming on the show and, just best of luck, I guess best of luck at Battle of Indiana and best of
Thank
luck,
you.
the rest of your career.
Thank you.
Awesome. All right.